Accounting came very late in the piece because I never regarded it as an accounting package. We didn't use accounting terminology, we didn't use accounting methods. This whole system was built purely from the farmer's point of view.
And I can remember going on holidays down in Busselton and he sat there and wrote code with a pencil in pads at the kitchen table at the beach house for a whole month. But to me that was just my dad.
You know, Mary put up with an awful lot, especially with me working right through holidays and things like that, and sitting in my little cubicle at night all by myself.
One of the excellent things about the program is that people with limited computer skills and limited inclination to get involved in financial management, the program has made it very easy for people like that to do.
So we had the big A3 pieces of paper, on one side was the budget, flip it over and there were all the worksheets. So Kent basically, while I was at Murisk Institute of Agriculture out at Northern, introduced us to that electronically. So all of a sudden the A3 piece of paper was there in bits on the screen, and so it was very familiar.
They completely replaced the manual budgeting and analysis and enabled monthly records to be kept up to date easily and accurately.
And it was just the new way of going back. My mother had a book, big book, ledger, and it was the future. And Agrimaster was being built then, so yeah, James basically walked us through it, and Agrimaster as well. And we had a truckload of, we bought 50 out of the group, 50 computers I think we did, and had a truckload of computers turn up.
We purchased 50 XT computers, printers and the software. It was a $5,000 package, and 50 of our clients converted straight away to, it was Agrimaster 2 I'm pretty sure, because it was about maybe 4 years after Agrimaster started.
It was absolutely phenomenal. As I say, unheard of back in those days. Nowadays, 30 years later, it's common practice.
It was just a magic transition because he kept it simple. He used what was already there and just made it better.
The next big change probably was when Windows came in. There was rumour going around the country that I wouldn't be able to handle the change. I was an amateur, and this was the end of Agrimaster, and yippee, we'll be able to take over all that business. This was a little bit of a red rag to a bull. Then after all that came the big bang, which is the GST.
The one I recall particularly was when GST arrived. Is that 20 years ago?
20 years.
20 years ago.
Yes, mid-2020.
And you know, that was a fairly traumatic, potentially traumatic. Agrimaster dealt with it beautifully, and it sort of arrived without any trouble at all.
There was a certain amount of trouble.
Oh.
But yes. Very many late nights.
Agrimaster has got, or was built on the foundation of that close relationship. Whether you're a consultant, farmer, accountant, Kent was always trying to make that relationship work better across all of those.
And we used to get Kent to come to our Plan Farm group and get the boys in the office in Kalamunda, or we were in Kalamunda before we went to Westport. And he would tell us all about the latest developments on Agrimaster 2, Mark 17 or whatever it was, and that was great. And then he knew that there was going to be an ambush, so then we'd get to the point where we'd say, well, that's all very interesting. As you know, we've got a lot of elderly clients, and they're quite familiar with the original decimal currency, and we're wondering if perhaps you could give us a Roman numerals option for Agrimaster, just to get these guys involved in the computing process. And Kent there would never be any outright rejection. He would always give it serious consideration, and that thoughtful manner that he had. He'd say, well, this could have consequences as to column width, and we might have to change the format. And
Well, Bob's already told the story I remember best about the succession planning, because that was 20 years ago, and it was just a 30-second conversation where he said, "Have you got a succession plan?" And I said, "Give me 6 months." And I heard on the grapevine a few years later that Bob had told someone that I delivered. and I delivered down there in David. Natalie was our bank manager. She met David, and when they got married, Natalie was looking at, there wasn't a place for her on the farm to work. She knew what I was doing. I didn't really need her help in that. So she was looking for a job, and eventually she said, "Could I be a distributor not a distributor, a reseller for Agrimaster under Country Soft?" And we arranged that, and she went out and she trained people up. She was very good at training, she knew very good people skills, Natalie, which we didn't have as farmers, because I worked by myself all my life. I don't need people skills.
We saw that there was a need for even training customers up in Agrimaster, because there was no real professional people running around training up the product.
Natalie had the people skills, and when you go into business where you're hiring people, that's what's necessary. David had the blue sky skills where you see the future and think about all the things like that.
And Kent was a terrible teacher. So he would just literally give me the manuals, I'd go away, I would rewrite them, I would learn it, I would go back to him and I'd go, "Have I got the concept right?" And then he'd go, "Yeah."
I wouldn't have given them any advice, because I wouldn't have known how to do it. This wasn't my field, you see.
We took the first big risk in our business lives, and we borrowed $50,000 and bought 12 computers. Data projectors and the whole lot, keyboards, mice, and the idea is, so from then on we were just running training workshops on Agrimaster and training a whole thousands of new customers on the advent of the GST in 2000. And that's when our company went from just us to 7 part-time staff plus a full-time receptionist. So we were really a training company, a training and support company is how we started. And the software was still very much my father. So he was writing software and distributing through another company who had been the distributor for probably 15 years. The naivety of youth, we just went to my father and said, "I think we can do a much better job if we bring all of our training, support, your software, we bring it all into one and we create it."
And we just had a baby.
So yeah, Harry was born in February, and we went to my father and said, "I think we should can we have the distribution rights? And we don't want to be given, we want you to assign us as the new distributor." It was, to quote my father, he goes, "Can you go and get some training in IT and stuff like that, because you'll never be able to afford to employ anyone."
I actually 100% think that they didn't think it was going to...
No, they thought it was the whole thing.
They thought it was going to just go pear-shaped really quickly.
But it was, and I think that was my father. He obviously he just thought this was an insane risk. But he goes, "Yeah, I'll back you."
But we had no fear either. We were just like, "Yep, we've got this."
Yeah, and it was really, the first year of business was a siege mentality. It was, and I just think back to our early staff, and I was going, they were literally insane working for us. Literally, the first girl, Paula, she worked for us in a potting shed, and I'd bought masonite from Bunnings to put on the brick floor so her chair didn't fall through the holes. And our desks were those plastic garden tables. And I just thought, why did you take a job with us? That is insane, right? And then our next offer...
Because that was for 6 months. She had to stump up every day.
And we didn't have a phone system, so we just had 4 lines running to the shed at the back of the house with 4 phones. She was having to pick up these 4 phones. Anyway, but then we got this proper unit, and it was just literally a factory unit with a cement floor and a whole lot. And the whole thing was, if we get 100 clients, we can have... so we had debt, so we borrowed all this money to hire some people to help us, and then it was like another 100 clients and everyone can have a chair. Another 100 clients.
No, a new chair. They had a chair, we could get rid of the plastic chairs.
Yeah, and then we go another 100 clients, we can paint the office. And then another 200 and we'll have carpet. And it was, but I suppose
It was such a startup.
It was very much a startup, but at the time we were just thought we were such big business people and we were just excited about it. And what we've worked out is you need different premises, different people, really for every stage of the business. And the stage we're in now is we needed, in order for Agrimaster to do as well in the next 40 years as it's done in the past 40 years, is it needs to transcend us in a way. Now, I mean, we need to, we had to go about recruiting really top-end people, and top-end people want top-end places to work, great culture. So we just invested intensely in culture, locations, buildings, all that sort of stuff. So the idea that if we get really good people and look after them, they'll write really good stuff and create great services, and that's exactly what's happening.
I think when I walked in here for the very first time, when David and Natalie took me through on a weekend once, was how proud I was of the job they'd done in 20 years. And that was my overwhelming, and I still remember how I felt that day. From a little 4 by 6 feet office to this over 40 years, it was unbelievable. I was quite emotional. This is their business. I have nothing to do with this. This is David and Natalie's business. My business was, up until 20 years ago, writing the software and almost being a one-man band in design, everything. But since they took over, yes, I stayed on board for a while and looked after the things that I could look after and continue doing it. But it was no longer my business. I didn't have to make all the hard decisions. I didn't have to take the risks. I didn't have the sleepless nights and all those things. So, and this is why I'm so proud of them.